Steve and his party would make the final preparations as the next wave was set to begin. They had gathered the supplies that they would need, Steve going over the final battle strategy and the formations needed. Everyone in the group, save for Philo and Raphtalia, who were already used to Steve coming up with plans and having a strategy in mind, were in awe of just how cooperative the SHIELD hero was. Unlike his other hero counterparts, who seemingly did their own thing without any regard for anyone else, Steve was able to incorporate everyone from Aki's group, along with the two fellow knights and the two mages. After going over their plans, the group would wait as the timer would tick down, and the next wave would begin. Saving villagers and fighting against monsters, Steve was able to get everyone into a perfect position to bring out their full skills and abilities. Much to everyone's shock, Steve was the first to admit that despite having his combat skills as high as they were, he didn't have true raw and destructive power like everyone else assumed he had. In the end, he relied on the skills of Aki and the knights, as well as Raphtalia and Philo. They were the true attack power. He would be the shield that guarded them. Making their way through, they would also get help from an unlikely source, an older woman by the name of Elrasla Ragnarok, or Granny Elrasra. She was a former adventurer, skilled in martial arts. As such, Granny Elrasla would assist them in taking down the lower tier monsters, leaving Steve, Philo, and Raphtalia to move to the flying haunted ship that loomed above them, where unfortunately they saw firsthand that the other heroes weren't making as good of an effort as he thought they'd be. They all seemed to just be getting in each other's way. No one had a sound strategy or plan. Steve was more so disappointed than anything else. It had been over 3 months since they had come to this world, and this was all they had to show for it. Flaunting their power aimlessly, not really having any rhyme, reason, or control over it. It was honestly pathetic. Steve had to step in countless times to deal with the monsters that they failed to defeat. Rather than being grateful though, each boy only had resentment in his heart. Some more than others, of course, but still, they thought that they were getting stronger, that they were going to be able to leave him in the dust. And yet, the opposite was proven true. Instead, it was Steve who was still outshowing all of them. Motoyasu, in his pride, taking it the worst out of everyone else. Of course, when it came time for them to deal with the Soul Eater, Steve felt as though he needed more power. Aki, Philo, and Raphtalia had each taken a swing at it respectively, and even despite his best efforts, the beast wasn't going down. Steve was desperate, and he was ready to use the Rage Shield, although there was a part of him that didn't want to tap into that power. It wasn't like any of the other shields he had used before. There was something different about it. He could feel the sinister nature of the shield itself. Raphtalia could see that Steve was dealing with a dilemma. She encouraged him to go for it, promising that they'd be there by his side no matter what. Having their okay and their support, Steve would attempt to use the Rage Shield. It affects not only him, but even the likes of Philo, making her far more stronger and aggressive, but losing her own state of consciousness. Within his own mind, Steve came face to face with the embodiment of rage from the dragon corpse that was used to create the Rage Shield. Its anger at being slayed by the Sword Hero and being used as a weapon by the Shield Hero. But there was also something else. Inside of his own mind, Steve saw a man of flames. It looked as though it were himself, made entirely of fire, the embodiment of his rage. The man of flame stuck his hand out to Steve. Steve reached out as well, almost as if to shake its hand, only for its grip to grab hold. Steve could feel the burning anger inside of him. All of his resentment, his hatred, everything he kept bottled up, all embedded in one person, his own being. To tap into that power, it scared even Steve, because he got to feel for the first time what he truly felt. It's what he had always felt, but it was something that he always kept compartmentalized in the back of his head. Something he never allowed to be brought to the forefront. His anger, losing Bucky, losing Peggy, all those who he had come to know and love and cherished along the way. Everyone that doubted him, everyone that mocked him. Steve always hated it. He thought about that general, the one that at first didn't even want him along, who thought that he was a stage monkey, who ignored his presence, but then had the audacity to try to boss him around after he saved Bucky and the other soldiers, the very soldiers he was going to leave to die. It was as if everyone was like that. Everyone was always quick to count him out. The man with the plan. The man that everyone thought was a joke. And yet whenever he succeeded, they were always quick to jump on it. Always quick to take part, to take credit. Acting like they did something special when they didn't. That was what Steve hated the most. Those that couldn't even stand for themselves. And it wasn't that he didn't mind helping others, but it was the fact that they couldn't even help themselves, and that they didn't even have the decency to say thank you. For Steve, it was almost too much. But then he remembered. He remembered her. He remembered asking if he could be more, if she really believed that. And she did. He still had his friends. For better or for worse, he couldn't have gotten this far without them. Steve would regain his focus as he chanted the incantation of the Rage Shield itself. Within this version of cold ore, who shall swallow even your screams with her embrace, suffer in anguish as your entire body is stabbed and skewered. Iron Maiden! Steve would trap the Soul Eater inside of the shield prison before casting it into the Iron Maiden that descended from the clouds above. The other heroes watching on as Steve closed his open fist and the walls of the Iron Maiden closed behind it, destroying the Soul Eater once and for all. For Ren, Itsuki, and Motoyasu, Steve took yet another leap in power. Of course, without their upgrades, it was still open for them to get stronger than Steve. In fact, they had long surpassed him in terms of level alone. But still, the fact that they couldn't do anything, it was more and more infuriating, humiliating. And then, just when it seemed as though the battle was over, another fighter would emerge. An elegant woman dressed in black, carrying fans in both of her hands. She introduced herself as Glass, and she had come to face a worthy challenge, heroes. But in her mind, she could only see one that fit that description. The others, well, they were servants, nothing of note. Of course, the spear, the sword, and the bow hero didn't take too kindly to this, but all of their misplaced anger and pride and bravado was quickly shattered as she made short work of them all. Now that I've put the children to bed, I believe it's time for the adults to have some fun. You're not like the other monsters, Steve would say. It's obvious that you understand what's going on here. Are you attempting to make conversation with the enemy? I'm trying to have understanding. Where do you come from? I come from another world, Shield Hero. A world that battles against the incursions same as you. But in the end, only one of us can be left standing. But it doesn't have to be this way. Oh? Are you showing mercy to your enemy? A very kind but foolish decision. I'm just trying to avoid the worst case scenario. If you're not fighting just for the sake of fighting, then it's obvious that you're no different than us. Maybe we can come to an agreement, a way of dealing with this. Believe me, I've tried. Anything you can think of, I've tried it. Though I must say, you are correct, Shield Hero. This is not the first world I've invaded, and I doubt it will be the last. The incursions are a meeting between worlds, and in the end, only one can be left standing. One world must stand and one shall fall, otherwise both will be lost. Do you grasp the situation? I still don't. I would like to think that there could be another way. If there's another world, then that means there are people there, innocent people. I don't wish for them to die. You are truly a kind-hearted warrior, one that I can sense has great compassion. For that, I will make your death swift and painless. You have earned that much at least. Steve, with the aid of Philo, Raftalia, and Aki, would battle against Glass, her power being far greater than anything they could have imagined. Despite every combination attack they came up with, every strategy, it wasn't enough to bring her down. Even using the Iron Maiden wasn't enough to stop her, it only slowed her. The best they could do was hasten a retreat as the wave was coming to an end. Glass tried to attack them from a distance, but Steve was able to protect the group. He was capable in that regard. For Glass, she was left more intrigued than anything else. The Shield Hero, a warrior said to be ruthless and cunning, and yet also he was kind and compassionate. Did he truly believe that there was a way of stopping the waves without losing either world? It didn't matter. The next time they met, she would not let herself be moved by his charming tongue. The next time they met, she would take his life. The wave of catastrophe had been averted, and once again, the day had been saved. But for Steve, his job was not yet done. The captain of the guard would have Steve ordered to be brought to the castle at once, as King Ulcray of Melremark wished to have an audience with him. Watching through his crystal ball and seeing how he performed, begrudgingly he had to thank him for his assistance in battling the waves, but he requested to know how the Shield Hero gained such power. It was unbecoming of the shield. Of course, Steve had half a mind to tell him off, but he took a deep breath and tried to explain. Your Highness, as you know, I don't have the privilege of being upgraded with my fellow party mates. For some reason, we're not allowed to do that in this country. We've had to level up the hard way, growing through experience, through training, battling various monsters and other enemies. With my shield, I simply feed it different material, and it manifests different shields that I can use. The rage shield you're asking about in question, I gained from the corpse of a dragon that was defeated by the sword hero. I see. So, you are so shameful that you take the hard credit and work of another hero and claim it for yourself. I did no such thing. It's only due to the arrogance of the other heroes that I even came into possession of the power in the first place. Your precious sword hero left the rotting carcass of that dragon. It infected an entire village. People died on his watch. I had to clean up the mess, and I was rewarded for it. I don't fully understand this power either, but still, if it can aid me in fighting against the waves, I see no reason why I shouldn't use it. Excuses. You are to tell everything you know to us all at once, and we wish to inspect your shield. If need be, we'll put limitations on it to make sure that your power does not go out of control. Not going to happen. The shield stays in my possession. I won't let you tamper with it. You dare go against my orders? You're right. I do. I've agreed to help you until the waves are over, but I do so on my terms. If you got a problem with that, then by all means, try and take this shield from me if you want. Although I promise you, it's not gonna go how you think. I'm not looking for a fight with you. I'm past trying to make you understand. I've told you the truth, and if you don't like it, that's your problem. We're done here, Your Highness. Who do you think you are? That you can talk to the king that way? That you can walk from me? I know. Perhaps I'll make your slave girls pay for your arrogance. Anyone that was ever loyal to you. Steve turned back to the king with a glare of anger in his eyes. A once bright and hopeful blue that often shimmered into a tinge of green now flared with a hint of red. You come anywhere near those girls, and you'll have me to deal with, Your Highness. You'll deal with something far worse than any wave of catastrophe if you cross me. I have no problem snatching you from that throne and dragging you through the dirt. You got that? Steve would storm out of the palace room as the king called him the Devil of the Shield. As he made his way out of the palace, a woman dressed in a ball gown walked past and made a remark, remarking that he should be wise to watch his steps, never knowing who could be watching or listening. Steve simply smirked. You do good work for the queen. She has some good people in her company. So you were able to see through even that? Steve could tell that the woman talking to him was one of the queen's guards from earlier. She might have had everyone else fooled, but Steve, he was already on to it. You just have to have open eyes, and you can see things more clearly. Although I must ask, why do you serve a man like him? For better or for worse, while Her Highness is away, then his word is law. But still, what he says and does will not go unpunished. Well, I hope it's sooner rather than later. Steve was preparing to leave the kingdom along with Philo and Raftalia. They still had to make their way to Siltveld, the only place where they could get class upgrades. Before leaving, though, there was someone else that came to accompany them. Aki, the knight. Mr. Shield Hero! Oh yeah, you're Aki. What is it? I wish to accompany you. Please, sir, allow me to be another one of your swords. Another one of my swords, huh? Are you sure about that? I mean, it's one thing to help during the waves, but if you're traveling with me, it's not going to be easy for you. Besides, you could probably still be of some help back here, and that's not the point. My other companions, they're still loyal to your side, but they have more of a reason to stay back behind at home. But as for me, well, I believe that I should accompany you. I believe in you, Shield Hero. I want to get better, to get stronger, and I feel like you're the only hero that can help me achieve that goal. I'll do whatever it takes, but please, take me in as a fellow member of your party, and I will give you the best that I have. I believe you. You fought with courage during the incursion. You have potential. I believe having 2 swords is better than 1. Raftalia here is my #1 swordsman. So, if you come in, you'll automatically be the #2 to her. But I think we can both get you up to snuff. What do you think, Raftalia? He definitely has ability and courage. He was able to hold his own, even against the likes of Miss Glass. I think he'd be a fine addition to our party. Welcome. Nice to meet you. I'm Philo. Hi, I'm Aki. As the group was preparing to leave, having made their way outside of the castle walls, they would be greeted once again, another platoon of knights, all behind that of Princess Melty. Of course, Steve wondered how many more people were going to be joining them on this incursion, but all the same, he stopped to listen to what she had to say. Melty would explain that she was trying to get all of the heroes to work on the same page, to try to stop the division that was being fostered by the king and by her sister. However, for Steve, for some reason, it didn't feel right. Something about this whole situation didn't feel right. He pulled Melty away at the last second as one of the knights behind her drew their swords. Immediately, everyone began acting as though Steve was trying to kidnap the princess. Quickly enough, Steve and his team would fight off these rogue knights, as Melty came to the horrible realization that what had just happened was an attempt of assassination, the assassination of her life. Of course, Melty didn't want to believe such a thing. She had hoped that she could just go home and try to explain to them what had happened. Sadly enough, one of the knights was carrying a crystal ball that broadcast to the whole kingdom what had happened, although the images were changed to look as though Steve and the others were attempting a kidnapping, as if they were truly as evil as everyone thought they were. Now their reputation was being ruined all over the land. If they weren't welcome now, the next time they came back, it'd be even more so. It didn't help as they ran into the night, only for them to be surrounded on the mountainside by the other heroes in Princess Mine. It became very clear that Mine was trying to kill her younger sister in order to steal the throne. Of course, Steve wasn't going to let that happen, but the other heroes, they had seen and heard enough. The 3 would tell him to hand over Princess Melty, believing that if she truly was in danger, then they could protect her. However, Steve, he knew that if they still couldn't see past the king and the princess's deceits, then he was not going to hand her over under any circumstance. He did give them a warning. If they continued to have their heads so far up the king and the princess's ass, they were never going to see the truth. They thought they were heroes, but they were little more than pawns on a chessboard. And when they were no longer serviceable, they'd all be discarded. With that, Steve and the others would run off into the night, disappearing as mines set the forest on fire in attempts to snuff them out. The Queen's guard would manage to locate them, telling them that the Queen wished to have an audience with the group, the shield hero in particular. The only problem was that the Queen was in another country in the complete opposite direction of Siltveld, where they needed to go to get their class upgrades. It left Steve with a tough choice: a meeting with the Queen, or a desperate need for a power-up to prepare for the fights ahead. In the meantime, the three heroes would be called back to the kingdom. They would go to the castle, being escorted underground through secret catacombs. Eventually, they arrived to a small room where a table sat with 3 thrones waiting for them. As they took their seats, they saw that in the shadow of the darkness, there lied someone else sitting on a throne higher than theirs. "And who are you?" Motoyasu would ask. "Who I am is of no concern. But if you need a name, you can call me Zemo. The reason why you're all here is because you have a new mission. One that will not be on record with the guild or even with your majesty. It will be off the books." "Off the books?" Itsuki would ask. "What type of mission could require that?" "I have brought you 3 here because the kingdom needs your help. It is in peril, and it is time for you all to enact your true roles as heroes and do what must be done for the kingdom. 3 great heroes, I implore you, please accept this mission." "Okay," Motoyasu would ask. "Are we going to be rewarded?" "You will receive riches far beyond anything you can possibly comprehend." I like the sound of that. "So, Mr. Zemo, what do we have to do?" "It's very simple. You must kill the shield hero by any means necessary." This concludes The Rising of the Shield Hero, The Man Out of Time. What if Captain America was the Shield Hero? Season 1, Part 4. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned tomorrow morning as we'll continue with The Rising of the Shield Hero, The Man Out of Time. What if Captain America was the Shield Hero? Season 1, Part 5. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.